Hello and Merry Christmas! Even if you don't celebrate the holiday, I hope your December 25th is a merry one. If you like this show and you'd like to support us next year, join our Patreon. Joining gives you access to extended interviews, as well as a chance to suggest questions for future guests. In this special two-part episode, I ask my guests how they celebrate or don't celebrate the holiday. In between these clips, I'll be giving some interesting facts and clearing up some misconceptions about Christmas, starting with this one. Christmas was once an unpopular holiday in the United States. The US was a new country, and most of its citizens thought of Christmas as a British custom. On the first Christmas under the US Constitution, Congress met and had a regular session. And now, Rabbi Raachel.
Judaism runs on the lunar calendar. Hanukkah shifts around, and sometimes it's after Christmas, sometimes it's in late November. How do you celebrate Hanukkah?
Okay, well, first of all, I want to clarify something about the calendar. It's a lunar calendar corrected to align with the solar year. 9 times out of 17 years, we have a leap year, which adds in an extra month. So that unlike a purely lunar calendar, which our Muslim siblings follow, where Ramadan slips back 11 days every secular year, Hanukkah stays roughly within the same 5 to 6 week period. But because we live in a culture that marks time on, what is it, we're now using the Julian calendar? Living with multiple calendars is tricky sometimes. No Jewish holidays are ever on time. They're always either early or late, but it's early or late relative to what non-Jews are doing to mark time. So Hanukkah appears at a time that's close to the darkest point in the year. And it's an opportunity to remind ourselves of the potential for renewal. It has a backstory around the desecration of the temple by the Syrian Greeks in the 2nd century BCE. But the rabbis were not terribly enchanted with the idea of promoting a military holiday under Roman rule, because the Romans did not care for that at all, and they were quite vicious in putting down any indication that their subject peoples might care to revolt. So the emphasis was put more on a miraculous extension of the light that was used to light the candelabra in the temple, and it should have burned out after one day, and it lasted long enough to press additional oil sufficient to keep it going. We've, for a very long time, understood the holiday as an opportunity, as the phrase goes, to publicize the miracle, that a little can be enough, that one light can light many, that holiness can be increased, that we are able to overcome what in the moment appear to be insurmountable obstacles and or oppression. And so it has an emotional valence around resistance against forced assimilation, resistance against uniformity, a requirement of social uniformity, and a reminder that each soul is a spark that can spark others, and that we are called generation to generation to manifest that. So over the years, what was a minor holiday grew into an adjunct of Christmas in the West.
The Gospel of Matthew is the only gospel that mentions the Magi. Matthew reports that they came from the east to worship the King of the Jews. The gospel never mentions the number of Magi. We say 3 Magi because they brought 3 gifts. In Syriac churches, the Magi often number 12. Their identification as kings is probably linked to Isaiah 60, which refers to kings coming to the brightness of your dawn, bearing gold and frankincense. Isaiah does not mention myrrh. Next up, Reverend Dr. Drew Smith.
How do you, in your congregation, celebrate Christmas?
We make a focus on Advent and Christmas. And Advent is that season, those 4 weeks before Christmas, the 4 Sundays before Christmas, that we prepare for celebrating Christmas Day. And we've found that, and I've found out personally in the congregations I've been a part of, we've really participated in that season because culturally, around us, there's all kinds of lights and that are fun, that are great, and all kinds of sales and gifts and parties, all that around Christmas that can distract us so or overwhelm our time and energy. We have no time when it comes to Christmas Day to really celebrate the mystery and the beauty and the wonder of the incarnation. That God, who was the creator, somehow, if there's a God who created the world, who spoke it into being, who breathed life into being, then it is a mystery beyond measure that somehow that God filtered down in some way, emptied himself to become human form. The creation becoming part, or the creator becoming part of creation. It'd be like me becoming a chair, some inanimate object, or a computer that's totally dependent on whoever. It's just mind-boggling. And so we want to use Advent season to really prepare us so that Christmas Day is a celebration of the wonder and beauty of Jesus, and try to actually keep as well the 12 days of Christmas, so that we celebrate Christmas the Sunday, either Christmas Sunday, the Sunday after, and then the next Sunday, because of that history of how the church has done that in the past, those 4 weeks of Advent. So we do Advent wreaths and have devotionals and those kind of things so as to keep our attention on the mystery of the incarnation, and then try to keep that going as well the Sundays after, those 12 days after Christmas Day.
How long is Christmas supposed to last? Well, here in the United States, it may feel like the entire last quarter of the calendar. Historically, it was called Christmastide, which went from Christmas Day to Epiphany, January 6th. The time before that was Advent, which starts on the fourth Sunday before Christmas. So, even before Black Friday was a thing, Christmas took up an entire month. And now, Reverend David Black.
But how do you celebrate Christmas?
It's, usually a time that I'm together with my family. My family isn't really big on holidays, and we don't really have big Christmas traditions. We would, my sisters are all scattered, so from time to time we try and all be in the same place at the same time. I think one of the things I appreciate about my family and our tradition around Christmas, it's sort of the same thing I was saying about idolatry. Like, it doesn't put it on a pedestal. It's a day of the year that, we can use to enjoy our family and just rest and have a great time. But it's not something sacred to us.
Joyce and Raleigh Hall were sending out their products to their customers in their Kansas City store. They would normally use tissue paper to wrap the products, but they ran out. What they did have was some fancy French paper, normally used to line envelopes. This was a success, and the next year, an even bigger success. They had just invented wrapping paper, or at least the type we use today. With this and another very popular product, greeting cards, they founded Hallmark, which is still selling cards and paper and corny Christmas movies to this day. Next up, Reverend Tim Ahrens.
How do you celebrate Christmas?
My wife is Jewish and I'm Christian, and she's a big fan of Christmas, which makes it really wonderful. So we celebrate Hanukkah and celebrate Christmas. And when we do that, we gather our family together. In years past, what we would have done was gather our family together, have a big dinner, open the gifts, just have a day, and then we just hang out. But in terms of the run up to Christmas Day, there's a lot of services of worship that are happening throughout December and up to Christmas Eve. I always am in church until Christmas Eve, and actually Christmas Day, like 1 o'clock in the morning. So Christmas is really a day for me just to take a nap. While the kids are enjoying their gifts, I just go and take a nap afterwards because I'm really tired. So, but Christmas is, I think it's a great day, and I think everybody should celebrate Christmas. And I don't mean that as crossing the line between church and state. I just think it's a day everybody should be sharing gifts. Like, find a day, just the same as Thanksgiving is a wonderful day to celebrate family and togetherness, hear what your crazy uncle's up to, and then everybody gets a migraine and watches a football game. I think Christmas should have the same sort of like, let's share. Let's think of somebody else and give something to someone else and find joy in the giving. So that's what I love about Christmas. I don't think that part of it should go away at all. Of course, for me, the story of the birth of Jesus can get lost in that. And as a Christian pastor, I want to keep lifting that up. Can you see it?
Oh, yes.
There's baby Yoda in the manger. So Christmas a year ago on Christmas Eve, I did a whole thing when Mandalorian came out. I did a whole thing on baby Yoda in my Christmas Eve sermon. And my son, who's an artist, sat there drawing this. And because he's never ready for Christmas, when I opened it the next morning, this was like the best Christmas gift I ever got. So it was so cool. Baby Yoda in the manger. So doesn't that sort of summarize how Christmas collides in culture and everything? And you lose, where did Jesus go? He's not there. It's baby Yoda. So yeah, Christmas is a wonderful time of year. I love it.
Whenever some reactionary wag says that they are going to ban Christmas, I always think, what, again? In Boston, Massachusetts, Christmas was banned for over 20 years. By who? Liberals? Lesbians? Leprechauns? No, Christians. Specifically, the Puritans. Puritans banned Christmas. You might ask, what, did the Puritans hate fun? Yes. Celebrations distracted people from penance and work. You rarely hear a good story about Puritans. Next up, Kulpreet Singh Koura.
Are any of your Sikh holidays, do any of them show up around December in the Christmas window?
Well, so yes, definitely. There are historical events obviously throughout the year, but the more prominent event actually happens right around 23rd and 26th of December. And by the way, these dates are not adjusted to the Gregorian calendar. They're still Julian calendar dates. So under Gregorian calendar, they would be right around the sort of like the middle part of December. This is when the four sons, Guru, were martyred. Two died fighting in a battle. They were both 18 and 16 respectively. The younger two were only 7 and 5. Both of the younger sons were very young, obviously, and they were martyred by being bricked alive. And as their bodies became unconscious, the still being built or erected wall of brick and mud kind of collapsed at the end, and their heads were severed. They were beheaded in public by the local ruler, simply for being the children of a Sikh guru who was not going to change his faith. So those days come around Christmas time frame, and our communities in India celebrate them. There are huge festival-like atmospheres. Hundreds and thousands of people gather at the city where that event happened in early 1700s.
What about the Star of Bethlehem? What was it? A common belief at the time was that astronomical phenomenon and terrestrial events were intertwined. As above, so below. Sure, something remarkable may have happened in the sky at the time of Jesus' birth, but again, what was it? The current theories include a comet, which is strange since they're normally bad omens, a supernova in the neighboring Andromeda galaxy, a planetary conjunction, or a double occultation. But all of these would mean Jesus of Nazareth was born sometime between February and June. Next up, Pandit Shivananda Bhat.
During what would be for secularists and Christians, the Christmas period, how do you celebrate? Is there any holidays you have during that time of year, or do you celebrate Christmas?
I do celebrate Christmas. I am open. In Sanatan Dharma, we celebrate Diwali. I think it's the same mean. Christmas means lightful festival, right? So same thing, Diwali. Bringing lightful and colorful life in our this journey and also removing darkness in our life. That is how, and that's why we celebrate Diwali. And I believe that Christmas, when people celebrate, the meaning is changing.
Perhaps the biggest misconception about Christmas is that what we do during this time is unique. Nearly every agricultural society had a winter festival that involved celebrating a bountiful harvest, which will sustain the community through the lean times. Astronomy was one of the world's first sciences, and farmers had to pay attention to the movements of the sky to understand their crops here on Earth. Whether you call it Yuletide, Dongzi, Inti Ramayana, or Mummer's Day, they all celebrate the same thing. And now Ottar Fjallakappi.
How do you celebrate the holiday season, the winter month seasons?
Oh, sure. We have the famous 12 days of Christmas that is so familiar to everyone, actually comes from the 12 days of Yule. We will typically gather not all 12 days, but as a community at some point, 1 or 2 days in there, the most sacred of which is 12th night, which is essentially 12 days after the winter solstice. And we engage in gift giving, and people very commonly have a decorated tree in their house, which is a tradition that predates Christianization in Scandinavia, and feasting and drinking and games and laughter and so on. It's I've always thought of it as a really ingenious custom because of the fact that, particularly if you think back 1,000 years ago, it's cold, it's freezing cold there during the winter by modern standards, even though people have houses and, heating and so on, let alone trying to live in structures that had, little to no insulation, and we're relying on wood fires for heat and so on. So it's ingenious that in the middle of that very trying and difficult circumstance, there's a spirit of celebration that's inserted into the middle of it. I kind of think of it as a morale booster to help people get, through the winter.
Here's the thing about mistletoe. The word comes from the Anglo-Saxon words mistle and tan, meaning dung and twig. It's believed that it's named after what branches look like when birds leave their droppings. Now let's speak with Imam Hammad Ahmad.
During the Christmas season, how does it make you feel living in the United States and just being, for the last 2 months, being surrounded by Christmas?
I mean, we're taught as Muslims to respect and love all people and all other religious traditions. And even though we may disagree in the sense that that was the birthday of Jesus or that Jesus was Son of God, the fact is that, people disagree with us with Islam, and that's okay. And so when I celebrate a Muslim holiday, and a lot of Christians, even atheists, Jews are very kind, and they say Eid Mubarak, or they say Ramazan Kareem, and they say these things and they join in the happiness. And that's something that, for me personally, I appreciate. I think, okay, the person's sharing, they're building a commonality. So in that same way, if Christians are, and we have to face reality. In the United States, we live in a Christian majority country, and the country was founded on Christian theology and Judeo-Christian theology and all of these things. So that's okay, and that's fine. If we're going to be surrounded by, Christmas and Christian symbolism and all of these things, I'm okay with that. I know what my faith is, and if people want to celebrate, they should be allowed to celebrate. The same way people are respectful of me celebrating my Muslim holidays. And if that means sharing in their happiness, if that means being kind and giving gifts, and that's what it means. And for me, it's a wonderful time because I promote people following their religion. I promote people being religious and being convicted in their faith, because I would want people to promote that in me as well. And so the same way I celebrate my religions, if somebody's a Christian, they want to celebrate Christmas, go ahead, do it, and do it as big and as loud as you want. I'm not offended at all. I'll enjoy it, because I know you're following your teaching and you're doing your best to follow your teaching. And that's something that I deeply, deeply respect. And not only respect, I love seeing that in other people.
I hope you enjoyed our Christmas special. I'd like to thank all of my guests for appearing on the series this year, and may the road rise with you.